1, go.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to today's virtual licensing committee hosted by Bassett Law District Council. Given the current challenging situation we all face following the outbreak of the COVID-19, is that better, Linda? New legislation has been approved that enables councils to host virtual meetings rather than requiring members to be present in the committee chambers when making a decision. This keeps everyone safe by maintaining a social distancing etiquette and allows business to be conducted in an appropriate manner. It is very important that council can hear each other. So I will invite members in alphabetical order to confirm their attendance and in so doing test their broadband connection. Right. Jim Anderson.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Gary Clarkson.
Present, Chair. Good evening.
Good evening. Tony Eaton.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Kevin Greaves.
Here, Chair.
Shirley Izzard.
Here, Chair.
Gwyneth Jones will not be attending. Paul Nichols.
Here, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I myself are present. David Presley.
Present, Chair.
Ellen Richards.
Evening, Chair.
Thank you. Joan Sanger. Joan Sanger. Clayton Tyndall.
Here, Chair.
Oh, you made it then, Clayton.
Yeah, I'm in sunny Skeg. I've been burnt.
Oh, have you? That serves you bloody right. The meeting is supported by key officers who I will now introduce by doing a roll call. Steve Wormold, Council Solicitor.
Present, Chair.
Roland Wilson.
Present, Chair.
Jennifer Flynn.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Linda Dorr.
Present, Chair. Present, Chair.
Alan,
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Clerk, Alan Inslee.
Present, Chair.
Thank you all. If a number of members lose connection and the meeting becomes in quora or the live streaming for public viewing fails, I shall adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes to allow connection to be re-established. Thank you all. Given this is a virtual meeting, there is no corporate responsibility to detail a fire procedure as we ordinarily would do. However, I would like to highlight that this committee is live streamed on social media. So all participants, please be aware of your actions and take appropriate safety precautions from your place of live streaming. Can I please remind members to switch off their microphones when not speaking? And also, could you please put your mobile phones on silent? Thank you. Agenda item number 1, apologies. Are there any apologies, Linda?
Apologies from Councillor Jones, Chair.
Sorry, I'm used to saying Linda.
That's all right.
Sorry, Ellen. Agenda item number 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest by members?
None received, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. Are there any declarations of interest by officers?
None received, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. Committee Clerk reads out any declarations received.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. If there are any members or officers who have made a pecuniary declaration of interest, they will need to leave the meeting and will be contacted to rejoin after the item has been heard. If during the meeting a member realises they have an interest, please disclose this as soon as possible. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is minutes of the last meeting held on the 11th of March 2020 at pages 5 to 7 in your agenda. Is any member not in favour of the minutes?
Chair, can I just interject there? It's Roland.
Right.
It just says on the minutes of the meeting, officers in attendance, and it has my name on. And whilst it's a long time ago, I was in Spain at that time, so I definitely didn't attend that meeting.
Lucky you, Roland. The minutes are therefore approved as amended. Okay? Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes for action and implementation list at pages 9 in your agenda. Steve, are there any updates of the minutes for action?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The minutes for action at paragraphs 32A and B have both been implemented following the meeting in March.
Thank you, Steve. Is any member not in favour of these? Thank you. The minutes for action and implementations are therefore noted for approved as amended. Thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the outstanding minutes list at page 11 in your agenda. Steve, are there any updates on the outstanding minutes?
Thank you, Chair. This is one that's been moved on. It's a street trading review, and it's been added to the outstanding minutes list. And a review will be undertaken when the principal solicitor from licensing and regulatory returns from her maternity leave, which will be next year in 2021.
Steve, can you stop her from having babies, please?
It's too late for the last one, I'm afraid.
I knew before her. To committee, are there any questions from members on the outstanding minutes list for noting? No. Agenda item number 6 is report of the council solicitor. Agenda item number 6A, COVID-19 licence impact to date, at pages 13 to 37 in your agenda. Steve, would you like to outline the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's as obviously the licensing committee hasn't met since March for reasons which obviously are relevant to this report. This is just a report really to bring members up to date on events that have happened since March as they relate to licensing. So the purpose of the report is to provide a general overview and update on the impact of COVID-19 on the council's licensing functions and upon businesses who carry out licensable activities. The report provides only a general overview to date, as the impact is both wide-reaching and still emerging. So members will see at section 3 of the report, it details from March onwards the government's response to COVID-19 insofar as they affected businesses and licensed premises. At paragraph 3.3, I've attached an appendix which a firm of licensing solicitors, Poppleston Allen, produced, and also the advice from the Local Government Association, which was advice for licensing authorities on approaches to manage licensing and related issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. A link to that was attached to the report, and it's also attached as Appendix 2. So leading up to that really details the business closures in March, and at paragraph 3.4 we then fast forward to May, when the government started to begin a phased reopening of businesses. At paragraph 3.4 you'll see that the government published its recovery strategy, and as part of the roadmap for reopening the economy, the strategy included a planned reopening of non-essential shops from the 1st of June, and then cafes, restaurants and pubs from the 4th of July, and likewise hotels and cinemas. Guidance was issued to premises on the 24th of June, and the guidance documents, one of which was for pubs, bars and restaurants, and one for hotels and other accommodation, details how licensed businesses can open safely while minimising the risk of spreading COVID-19. And links to the guidance are attached to the report.
Is that it, Steve?
No, I've just got a little bit more. I'll just continue at paragraph 3.5 onwards. Just to say that at a local level, prior to the 4th of July, the council contacted a number of licensed businesses to discuss their reopening plans. The council's environmental health team telephoned businesses prior to their reopening, and the council's economic development team also contacted businesses and researched social media to build a picture on which businesses intended to reopen from the 4th of July. And the council's licensing team contacted and were contacted by businesses to discuss licensing issues relating to their plans to reopen. Just to bring it right up to date now, obviously premises reopened from the 4th of July, and then at paragraph 3.7 you'll see that a number of personal care businesses have now been allowed to reopen, including nail bars, beauty salons, tanning booths and tattoo parlours, and caravan sites have also reopened, and indoor gyms have reopened from last weekend, the 25th of July. But the businesses which must still remain closed include nightclubs, dance halls, discotheques and sexual entertainment venues. There are forthcoming changes which I did detail in this report relating to the Planning and Business Bill, which has now received royal assent, but members will see that we've tabled a late report which specifically addresses that bill, so I won't go into any further detail in this report about it. Turning over the page to page 16, paragraph 3.10 just contains a general summary of the impact on the hospitality sector of business closure from March until July. Obviously, the majority of annual premise licence fees are invoiced later in the year, and it's thought that at that stage it's more likely that a picture will emerge of the number of businesses that have closed and haven't reopened in July. In terms of other licensed sectors, paragraph 3.11 just contains a little bit there about the taxi trade, which obviously could continue to operate throughout the period since March, but obviously other business closures, closure of schools, retail, etc., has significantly impacted on their trade, and a number of drivers were furloughed and haven't worked during the period. So turning to the recommendation, it's really a report for information only for members. I don't know if they'll have any questions arising out of it, but the recommendation's on page 17 at paragraph 6.1, and it's simply that members are asked to note the content of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Steve, can I ask a question, please, about a licensing venue? You know, like they have to pay, is it yearly fee licensing?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Do they get any money knocked off because they've not been opened?
Not for the licensed premises, because that's an annual fee that's set by the Licensing Act. So it's set by legislation. Some of the guidance that I have attached to the report does suggest some suggestions about the fact that if businesses haven't reopened and the licence is suspended, then the council could look to defer fees, but we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, it was just a thought, Steve, that went through my head. I do remember, like you talked about, telephone calling licensed premises to the landlords. I had a really nasty comment from Wesley. What do they call him, Wesley? From Rewind. What's his other name? West.
Oh yeah, the licensee of Rewind.
Yes, he tried to say that nobody had contacted him, and I said to him, well, have you looked on website? Because it was all put on website, weren't it, for them to see? Yeah,
I mean, every business may not have been contacted individually, but yes, all the information about the guidance on safe reopening had been put on the website.
They were rather rude, actually. Right.
Chair, if I can just come in there, I know. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you. I know that one of the enforcement officers has had several phone calls with Wes from Rewind and has spoken to him on several occasions. So he wasn't contacted about reopening or anything. He has complained about other businesses, but he has been spoken to and been given advice.
Good. Well, they were rather rude to me, and that were on Facebook in front of people, you know, which I just didn't, I just left him to it and let him get on with it. Right, are there any comments or observations on this report for Steve, please?
Chair, Councillor Presley first indicated, and then Councillor Clarkson. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm just asking Steve, on the lot of income that will come through to the council, will there be a compensation from the government for this loss of income to Basildon District Council?
I don't know specifically relating to licensing, Councillor Presley. I do know that the council's finance team are required to put together details of losses for government, because there is a scheme in place to cover that. Whether it covers licensing, we'll have to look at, but we're not in a position to quantify what those losses are at the moment, so we haven't been able to make any claim today.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Steve. Gary?
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Gary?
Thank you, Chair. This one really, I suppose in a way, is to Steve and to Roland, through yourself though. On paragraph, where are we? Paragraph 3.6, licensing, licensed premises reopening. And it says, whilst issues were reported at a small number of premises, reopening was generally passed off fairly well. That's really good news. And obviously, from anecdotal evidence, we can see that most licensed premises have got really good systems. I wonder if Roland and Steve could explain what kind of strategies are being used with those establishments where they're probably not following the letter of the advice that they're being given, and that there are problems coming to light. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I can answer this one. Yes, I mean, obviously, since that report, that I don't want, because we're in a public meeting, obviously, I don't want to get into detail about individual premises, because there is potential enforcement action. But in general, we are still having reports of problems at some premises, particularly relating to a lack of enforcement of social distancing at the premises. And there are some sort of concerning reports about large crowds in venues. Obviously, you know, those venues have already been spoke to, some of which have got very good procedures that they've come up with and risk assessments, but it's a question of whether those are actually being put into practice when people are there. So at the moment, the council is doing follow-up visits with some of those, and some of those are certainly scheduled for this week. In terms of tools for licensed premises, obviously, all of the government guidance is guidance, so it's not an offence to breach it per se, but it could have an impact upon the licence if there are repeated breaches of guidelines, which means that it isn't a safe environment, because public safety is obviously one of the licensing objectives and could ultimately lead to a responsible authority seeking a review of the licence. The second issue is that environmental health also have powers, because they have powers under the Health and Safety at Work Act. So if premises aren't providing a safe place of work, then there's also the issue of serving what's called an improvement notice, and that could potentially lead to prosecution. We are also looking at whether there are any other enforcement tools, but they're the two that we're kind of looking at being options at the moment. Obviously, the review of the licence is quite a long and labour-intensive process, so that wouldn't be a sort of quick fix. The Health and Safety at Work Act may be something that we could look at a bit quicker, but we are certainly reacting at the moment and trying to look at various options for enforcement.
Steve, are we, you know, like they have to give the names, addresses and telephone numbers. Do they get checked from licensing?
It can be checked. I mean, that's obviously guidance to premises that they do that for the track and trace, and that is something we can follow up and make sure that is being done, and they're required to keep those details for 21 days, as you know.
Yeah, 3 weeks, yeah. Thank you. Is there anyone else that's got any questions or comments for Steve?
Chair, Councillor Presley has a further question for you.
David?
It'll be very quick, Chairman, I hope. Is the use of masks being followed up by us, or is it just the police that follow that up, Steve?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the guidance says about use of masks. Obviously, it's not a requirement for members of the public to wear masks in food and drink establishments. It's only in retail premises and public transport, things like that. There is an exemption for food and drink premises, because obviously it's not practical to wear a mask while you're eating and drinking. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the guidance is for staff in the premises about wearing PPE. I don't know if Roland knows off the top of his head, but obviously, like anything, you know, this is guidance that we would work through with premises.
But they should wear them, Chairman, as far as I know, when it's takeaways, which are we responsible as well?
Yes, yeah, you're quite right there. So there is the distinction. If someone's going into a premises to buy food to take it away, then they do need to wear a mask. Obviously, if they're going to consume it on the premises, then they don't.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else before we move on? Is anybody indicating, Linda?
Yes, Roland Wilson, officer, is requested to speak. Thank you.
Roland.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just following up on what Steve said. My understanding is that staff in licensed premises do not have to wear masks, but I also think it's reasonable that the premises do a full risk assessment and make masks and PPE available for all the staff if they wish to use it. Yeah,
I totally agree. Right then, we'll move on to item 6B. That's back to you then, Steve. Oh, sorry. I've missed. Is anyone against that course of action or wishes to abstain? Do you want me to go through everyone, Steve?
No, Chair, perhaps if you read out the recommendation, or if you want me to read it out, and then you can ask if members...
Right. Would you like to read it out then, Steve, on page 17?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you said, the recommendation is on page 17, and it's that members are asked to note the content of this report.
Right. So are we now going to see if anybody wants to abstain or against?
That's right, Chair, yes.
Right. Shall I do a call on that one then, Steve?
Chair, I think if you just proceed as you did before I read the recommendation and ask if anyone wishes to oppose or to abstain.
Yeah. Is there anyone that wishes to oppose or abstain from recommendation? No? Right. Looks then, Steve, that it's carried.
Chair, just before you do continue on to the next item, just to let you know that Councillor Jones-Sanger did join the meeting at the start of that report. Thank you.
Right. She's in then, right?
Joan, if you'd like to confirm to Councillor Potts that you're present.
Yeah, I'm present. I don't know what happened, Chair. It just wouldn't let me do anything. It said, you must end the previous call. Well, I hadn't had a previous call.
Yeah, but you know, I did the same thing yesterday.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know what to press.
Well, what it were, we had 2 hearings, right? And I couldn't get into the second one. It's because I didn't end the first one. And my daughter pointed it out to me. If you'd been in a previous virtual, I think I'm right on this. You've got the bar where it says video, your mic, your loudspeaker, your 3 dots, and then you've got a telephone in a red box, yeah?
Yes.
If you press that red box, that ends your previous meeting that you've been in.
Oh, right. Okay.
I didn't know Joan till yesterday.
Right. Okay.
And then I said to my daughter, I can't get into that meeting number 2. She said, no, because she's still in number 1.
Right. Thank you. I must have still been in the practice one.
You probably were, Joan. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was panicking.
Joan, we're still all learning.
Yes, we are.
We've not done this before, have we?
No.
Right.
Thank you very much.
We're going now to agenda item B, which is it's the guidance. It's from the report of council solicitor for pavement licensing. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, and firstly, Chair, I'd just like to thank the Chair for allowing this item to be brought to committee as an urgent item after the agenda had been sent out. The details of why the report had to be brought as a late item are contained in the report itself, but in summary, it was necessary to bring the report tonight to enable the Council to begin to administer this new piece of legislation, which has now received royal assent.
Thank you.
The purpose of the report is to detail a new District Council licensing function, which is to determine applications for pavement licences. A pavement licence allows the licence holder to place removable furniture over certain highways adjacent to the premises in relation to which the application was made. Businesses which sell food or drink for consumption on or off the premises may apply for a pavement licence. And pavement licences have been introduced by the government as a measure which may assist the economic recovery in the hospitality trade. Members are aware, obviously, of the severe impact that COVID-19 related business closures have had on the hospitality trade. This report sets out a draft of the processes that could be applied by the Council to consider applications and recommends a scheme of delegation for the issuing and refusal of licences. The report also recommends that no fee is charged in respect of these new licences. So at paragraph 3.3, there's obviously reference to government guidance, which is also attached to the report. And it makes clear that this is a measure that's seen as an important stimulus to the economic recovery of businesses in the hospitality sector. And it's important that the Council is in a position where it can begin to operate the new powers as soon as possible, given that the Act is now in force. As originally drafted, the bill had made pavement licences an executive function, meaning that a cabinet member would have been able to deal with any necessary decisions about the setting of fees and the delegation of the authority required by the Act. However, an amendment to the bill was tabled and approved shortly before its implementation, which resulted in this part of the Act becoming a licensing rather than an executive function, which means that those decisions should now be taken by a licensing committee. And this report sets out the basics of how the system is expected to operate. It deals with the questions of fees for the service and suggests a scheme of delegation to enable the system to work effectively within the very tight timescales that councils will be allowed to process and determine applications. Paragraph 3.4 of the report sets out the process that must be followed. Members will see that it's a very tight timescale to determine an application. There'll be a 7-day consultation period, following which the authority will have 7 days in which to determine the application. Paragraph 3.6 of the report refers to fees. The legislation allows a maximum fee to be charged of £100, but local authorities are free to charge a lesser amount or indeed to waive the fee if they wish. And for the following reasons, the recommendation to members tonight is that the council should not charge a fee. The reasons being, firstly, the introduction of the fast-track pavement licence application is intended to provide assistance in the economic recovery of the hospitality sector, which in general is to be supported. By not charging a fee, the council would provide an additional level of support to the recovery of businesses. Secondly, the scheme introduced by the Act is time limited, and any pavement licences granted under the Act will last only until the 30th of September 2021 at the latest. As such, licences granted are time limited at this stage. But if the council did become responsible for dealing with pavement licences beyond that date in 2021, then it could at that stage consider the introduction of a fee for doing so. Thirdly, before the bill was proposed, the County Council had already announced that it would process applications for pavement licences under the Highways Act 1980 for free for a limited period of time. Furthermore, other district councils in Nottinghamshire, including Broxtowe, Mansfield and Ashfield, have decided not to charge a fee. So although some other authorities will charge a fee, Newark and Sherwood for instance, it is considered that charging a fee would be out of step with a general consensus that no fee should be charged as a means to assist economic recovery. Paragraphs 3.8 and 3.9 suggest delegations. As these are applications that must be dealt with quickly, it's felt appropriate that determination of applications are dealt with at officer level. So you'll see there's a table at paragraph 3.9, and the suggested delegation authority would be given to the council solicitor, which is my post, and also to the principal solicitor licensing and regulatory, which is the post that generally manages the licensing team, albeit that the post holder is currently on maternity leave. The Act doesn't give any statutory right of appeal against refusals. However, we are proposing that there is a review procedure should anyone wish to take this up, and we're proposing that a review of any refusals, should the applicant request this, would be undertaken by a licensing panel under existing council procedures, the licensing panel being a panel of 3 members chosen by the licensing committee. So turning to the recommendations, they're set out at paragraph 6 of the report. And the first recommendation is that the council does not charge a fee for the determination of applications for pavement licences. And the second is that the scheme of delegation detailed at section 3.9 of the report is adopted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions for Steve, or any questions or comments?
Chair, just to let you know that questions from Councillor Greaves, then Councillor Presley, then Councillor Clarkson. Thank you.
David. Sorry.
Councillor Greaves.
Clarkson. Yeah, Kevin, can you please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got 1 or 2 questions actually, Steve. With the licensees, how many tables or chairs does each license application able to have? I.e., you know, on say on Bridge Street, for instance, how many tables and how many chairs can they have? Another question, that's question 1. Question 2, how is it going to work on market days with social distancing? Next question, okay, we're not going to charge, your recommendation is we're not charging for this service or for these licenses. Will we be reimbursed by government for the charge of this? Because obviously nothing's for nothing. There's always a cost. There's a cost in officers' time, for instance. Has that been costed? And to administer it, has that been costed at all? Right. And on Newark and Sherwood District Council, can you give us some indication how much they are charging for this service. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think that's everything. All right, Steve, I know there's one or two questions there, but
Steve, would you like to reply, please? Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In terms of costings, because we're proposing not to charge a fee, that hasn't been costed as such, because we really don't know how many applications we're likely to get. We may have none, we may have a substantial amount, but we just don't know. My personal feeling is the number of businesses that are likely to be able to take advantage of it, if they're next to an appropriate piece of highway that meets the legislation, it may not actually be that many. We won't recover any money from government because obviously it's a local decision that we're taking, and the legislation does give us the right to charge up to £100 per application. So that's a choice for us as a council. We could charge up to the maximum, we could charge £50, we could charge anything in between, but the suggestion is that we're not going to charge a fee in an attempt to help businesses, but no, we won't recoup that money at all if we choose not to charge a fee. In terms of impact on social distancing on highways, pedestrian highways such as Bridge Street, that will obviously be a significant fact to take into account when we're determining a licence. And for that reason, as well as the Highway Authority, we're also proposing to include some additional consultees, and I've set those out at paragraph 3.8 of the report. They'll include the police, the council's environmental health, its community safety team, planning, and economic development. And by economic development, I'm including people who are associated with the town centre, like the markets manager, John Simmons. But also, as part of the consultation, any applicant will be required to place a notice at the premises informing the public of the application, and any member of the public will be able to make a representation. So we do anticipate, that we'll get representations if there are concerns about, the impact of those tables and chains on the highway, including could it allow social distancing on market days? Would it interfere with the market? And there is also, mandatory non-obstruction clauses in there. So if we felt that an applicant wasn't going to be able to meet that, then it's likely that the application would be refused. Roland I may have to bow to Roland on this one, but I'm not sure on in terms of maximum numbers of tables and chairs. Obviously, an applicant has to provide a plan of the proposal and give us the numbers. Roland, I don't know if there is a maximum number in the draft conditions or not, or whether it's a decision on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, Chair, I would say it's on a case-by-case basis, and obviously because the application is going to highways, I think that's where they can be looking at this and giving us their comments on the width of the highway and what they feel is reasonable.
Are you listening, Mr. Greaves? Your highways. I said.
Sorry, just coming back to that, Councillor Greaves. I think because the Highway Authority is the only statutory consultee, I do anticipate that, they would be flagging up issues if it wasn't a suitable location, on the highway.
Yeah. I'd like to just say some good could come out of this, because I think also it could be creating jobs, for people, if they have to employ people to wait on the tables. So that will be creating a job at these premises. Right, the next in, can I have David, please?
Thanks, Chair. Mine is a simple one. Local members, how will they be informed? Because we might have the objection to it as well. Therefore, how can we get to know what's happening, Chairman?
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, additional consultees is obviously a matter for the council, and so it's something that you could specify in addition to those that we've proposed in the report. I know some other authorities are proposing to consult parish councillors if it's in a village location, and you know, consultation of ward members, you know, is also a possibility. Obviously, it's a very, very quick process, so it's only a 7-day consultation process, but you know, we don't want to kind of run out of control with a number of consultees. But yeah, I mean, that could be something we could factor in if members wanted that.
Right.
I would suggest that we have local members on it, Chairman, at least.
Right. Thank you, David. Gary.
My question has now been answered, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, we also, Councillor Jim Anderson has requested to speak. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing, if I may, can I second David, Councillor Presley's suggestion that ward councillors be notified, please? I'd like to do that. I have an additional point, and it's about sort of stealing of areas. Let me see if I can paste my point. I've done that now. And what I'm worried about is that in certain areas, it's going to be the case that businesses might try and claim a disproportionately large area of their land in front of them. It says adjacent. I don't know how effective we will be at allocating adjacent areas, but I'm thinking perhaps of Retford Square. It's entirely possible that there's 3 establishments on the square. They could technically claim 3/4 of the square. I know we don't have to allow it, but I'm just wondering if we ought to, in our advice to them, suggest that they shouldn't claim more than their existing area. So in other words, if they can seat 100 customers at the present time, by the time they've claimed their new area, they should still only be able to seat that number of people. Just a thought, but I'm just concerned that there might be a bit of a scramble for certain areas. Thank you, Chair.
Steve, are you going to answer that one, or Roland?
I can answer that, because I think firstly I can set Councillor Anderson's mind at rest in terms of Retford Market Square, because the Market Square isn't highway land, it's land owned by the District Council. So we do grant pavement licences there already, but they're granted outside of this legislation. Effectively, it's granted by the landowner. So we do have, you know, considerable control over the Retford Market Square, as the District Council is the landowner. In terms of others, obviously the application will require a plan with numbers and locations of street furniture on it, and we do have, you know, enforcement powers, and there's a power to revoke licenses. So yeah, I'm fairly confident we would be able to keep businesses in order in terms of keeping to, you know, the prescribed area.
Thank you, Steve. Are we putting this to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. You've obviously got the recommendations in the report, but you've had a proposal to add to the consultees, which has been seconded, and I believe that is that ward members also be consulted about an application in their ward. And I don't know if members want to extend that to parish council or just to ward members, because obviously that would cover the rural villages as well.
So this is adopted then, Steve?
You'll need to put that to the vote, Chair, because you've had a proposer and a seconder that ward members be added to the list of consultees.
Right. Is everyone in favour of the ward members being added to the consultees? Do you want me to do a roll, Steve?
Yeah. I think a roll would be a good idea for this.
Right, we'll do that then, Steve. Just let me get me bits together. Jim Anderson.
4.
Gary Clarkson,
4.
Tony Eaton,
4.
Kevin Greaves,
4, Chair.
Shirley Izzard,
Shirley, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Sorry, 4.
Thank you. Paul Nichols.
4.
And 4 for myself. David Presley.
4.
Ellen Richards.
4.
Joan Sanger.
4, Chair.
Clayton Tyndall.
4.
Thank you. That's carried then, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we will add a resolution that ward members be an additional consultee on applications.
Yeah.
So I believe, Chair, you can now move to the substantive recommendation.
Right. So are we having a... Where am I? Wait a minute. Just give me a second, Steve. Right. The council does not charge a fee for the determination of the application for pavement licensing. Are we doing a roll call for that, Steve?
Chair, there are 2 recommendations at paragraph 6.1 and 6.2, and I think you can just do your vote in your normal way for that and just see if there are anyone against or abstentions.
The scheme of the delegation detailed at section 3.9 of this report is adopted. Are there any abstentions? No? It's carried then, Steve. Yeah.
Chair, just need to check if anyone's against as well.
Is there anyone against? No. Right, we'll move on. Agenda item number 7 is any other business which the chair considers to be urgent, which I don't have anything else to add. That concludes the meeting. Thank you to all for the members for attending, and thank you also to any members of the public who have been watching the live stream. I hope you have found it interesting to see and hear how the council's licensing committee operates. Can I please have confirmation that the live stream has now ended, please?